I be banging.
What you mean I be banging?
Welcome to Six of One and Bill of the Other, where this episode we are going to discuss
Bringing Out the Dead.
Bill, tell me about Bringing Out the Dead.
Well, I know YouTube always talks about audience retention, so could you give me 5 seconds? I just want to say that we just hit 600 subscribers, and I wanted to thank you. And I didn't want to step right out and say this, but Mercurial number 6 over here has promised that if we can get to 1,000 subscribers, he will do an entire episode with his shirt off. If we do that, though, please refrain from calling him the Mercurial number. So please like and subscribe. Anyway, Bringing Out the Dead is a 1999 psychological drama directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Nicolas Cage. The film is based on Joe Connolly's novel of the same name. Set in the early 1990s in New York City, the story follows Frank Pierce, played by Nicolas Cage, a burnout paramedic working the graveyard shift in Hell's Kitchen. Over the course of 3 nights, we witness Frank's descent into a personal hell as he grapples with ghosts of patients he couldn't save, particularly a young girl named Rose. Frank works with various partners throughout the film: Larry, played by John Goodman, a food-obsessed veteran; Marcus, played by Ving Rhames, a religious zealot; and Tom, played by Tom Sizemore, an adrenaline junkie. Each partner represents a different coping mechanism for the stress of the job. During these nights, Frank becomes involved with Mary Burke, played by Patricia Arquette, the daughter of a cardiac arrest patient he brought in. Their relationship develops as Frank frequents the hospital, checking on Mary's father. The film is a hallucinatory journey through the streets of New York, filled with dark humor, surreal imagery, and a pulsing soundtrack. It explores themes of guilt, redemption, burnout, and the thin line between life and death. Mercurial number 6, what did you think of Bringing Out the Dead?
Tell me again how this is one of your favourite films of all time.
I love this film.
Right.
So for the folks at home, I love this film, and it's odd because I have a lot to criticize about it, but I still love it.
Good.
And I recommended it. So I'm not a psychic, but I'm gonna guess that you may feel otherwise.
I didn't much like this film. What I want this episode to do for me is it's going to be your opportunity to sell it to me. I'll sort of tell you what I didn't like about it, maybe.
Okay.
And then you come back at me, because I can be won over, and I've been won over a few times recently, and I actually like this podcast for the reason that it makes me appreciate things that at first glance I take a little bit of a dislike to.
To quote the film, I'll teach you how to be an American. Let's start by eating my shit. That's a quote of the film.
So the film features driving sequences through New York, the darkness, the neon lights. It's got a narration, kind of a first-person narration. This is written, directed by the same people that did Taxi Driver. So fundamentally, the narration in this one is about washing your face with 3 different kinds of soap, and Taxi Driver, fair enough, is about washing the scum from the streets. So I can see that this is maybe a more positive version of displaying the kind of the sickness of New York City. It was Taxi Drivers of the 70s, this is the 90s. But to me, it's a film that didn't need to be made. He's already made Taxi Driver. I didn't really get it. I've got lots of there's things I like. Can I tell you my favourite thing about the film first?
Yes.
Right. There's a great moment in this film where there's a drug dealer. We can talk about like the plot and everything, but there's a great moment in this film where there's this drug dealer impaled on this railing, impaled on this spike, hanging off the side of a building. And he looks out, and he's looking across the New York City skyline as the fire service is angle grinding and the thing, and there's sparks flying, and they're saying it might get a little bit hot. And he's looking out at the skyline, and the sparks are flying. And then Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue plays, just like the intro of Woody Allen's Manhattan. And it kind of juxtaposes. I know exactly what Scorsese's doing there. And that moment, and it looks beautiful. I laughed. That is so funny. I laughed. That moment was perfect, right? So, I am able to be won over. I watched the film twice. I preferred it the second viewing.
Of course.
You are able, this is not an impossible situation. You are able to win me over here.
Okay.
But I'm still stuck with a film that didn't seem to have much of a point. And even as it ended and it cut to the credits, I didn't know what the point was. Whereas with Taxi Driver, I kind of did. So, Bill, try and win me over.
All right,
on
well,
this.
I mean, I'll talk about the things I loved. I mean, as far as the point of the film, it's a hard question because you think about the theme, and to go over the plot, the point is he hasn't saved anyone in months when the movie starts, and every time he goes to save a patient, it goes badly. The most brilliant case being they delivered twins.
Yes.
And Ving Rhames' character gets a beautiful living baby, and his baby is dead. And then at the end of the film, he does save someone. He saves the drug dealer you mentioned. But that doesn't really seem like the hard-won victory throughout the entire thing. So the patient he saves, or he goes to at the very beginning of the film, sort of is being shocked back to life throughout the entire film, but he really shouldn't be, is what they're alluding to. And at the very end, he basically kills him. He takes him off the life support and fakes it to make it look like he died. And the movie sort of leads you to believe that that's what the guy wanted. And so the point is he was sort of addicted to helping people and was depressed because he wasn't. And it realized that he realized that he had been helping people, but just not in the way that he had imagined. Because if you notice at the very end, he had that glow like he did when he saved people, when he's cuddling with Patricia Arquette's character.
Yes.
And I took that as saying that even though he let someone die, he realized he was helping that person just as much as he did when he helped people live. So the theme might be that whatever you're looking for in life, maybe you have to look at it from a different perspective and realize, there's more to helping people than sort of the way you view it or the way you want it. Sometimes you want your life to sort of move a certain direction, and you sort of miss the people in your life and what they need. Is sort of what I took as the theme. Does that make any sense? It's hard to enunciate, maybe.
I quite like that because you're right. Because it's quite a cohesive film in that respect. Because you're right. Because the Patricia Arquette's father seems like a lost cause, but somehow it's quite not really explained. He comes back. I quite like. See, look, we're talking more things I quite liked here. He says music helps. And he says, play some music. And then she says, play the Sinatra. And the idea that music can connect to the soul, which actually goes to the sort of soundtrack of the film. It's a very...
Well, let's dive into that then real quick. We're talking about things we liked about the film.
Yeah.
One of the things I love films about people who are really good at whatever they're doing in the film. I've never been an EMT. It is clear, I think he says in the film, he's been an EMT for 5 or 6 years. And a lot of EMTs in real life, excuse me, who have watched this film said this is the closest they've ever seen to people portraying what it's really like to be an EMT. And so to that point, we have a show over here called 911 that every time I watch a football game, they advertise, and it looks absolutely terrible. And it's like, hi, I'm an EMT, but I would love to hook up with you, hot nurse, but we need to save this guy. And so it's very refreshing to see this batshit insane world of what it probably really is like to work the midnight shift in Hell's Kitchen. Obviously, a bit exaggerated, but still. And one of the things I really appreciate with that is in that first scene when he's going to the guy with the heart attack, they're walking up, and the guy himself who's hurt is passed out, but you just hear shrieks of horror and screams, and him and John Goodman are just casually walking into that apartment. And what a job being an EMT must be. Years and years ago I worked as an armored car guard, and I always sort of got a kick out of, I was always going to the door that said do not enter. That was where you're supposed to go. And they're always walking in when people are screaming in horror and everyone else is running away. And I thought the way that they were very just nonchalant about how insane the entire film is. John Goodman quits like 50 times in the first 20 minutes, and Nick Cage just ignores him. And they're just casually walking in as people are shrieking. And he sits down and he's very calm. And like he said, he says, put on the music and it works. Like, these guys know what they're doing. And I thought they captured that very, very well. And I also thought they captured the city as a character so well. And everyone is insane. and everyone is hilarious. So you talked about they already made Taxi Driver. What's the point of this film? And look, we review movies, but I wouldn't say we're art critics. So yes, we can take the canon of Martin Scorsese and put that in the conversation, but tell me you didn't laugh your ass off multiple times watching this movie. John Goodman's hilarious. Ving Rhames is hilarious. The guy with the sunglasses working in the emergency room.
Yeah.
By the way, I looked
Gris.
up. There's a black guy with sunglasses. He's like, don't make me take off my sunglasses. And it reminded me, there was an Oakland Raiders player that always wore sunglasses inside. And one time the press asked him, they said, why do you always wear sunglasses inside? He goes, man, when you're as cool as me, the sun is always shining. Anyway, he was reading a book called Black Robes, White Justice. And of course, I had to look it up. And that is a very real book. It is a book about the American justice system and how it is unfair to black people. But there's just so many fantastic side characters. There's so many great bits of comedy. And I always have loved The Night Shift. And The Night Shift is terrible if you have a family. It's terrible for a lot of reasons. But actually working it, I've always just loved. There's a different world at 3 in the morning. There's different people. There's shit that's going to happen at 3 in the morning at your job that is not allowed to happen at 8 o'clock a.m. in your job. In this movie, they get into a car accident and walk away. His boss begs his boss to fire him. They're drinking on the job. They're taking their own drugs, and no one cares. They just want them to stay. And I loved every second of it. So let me ask, because, we're critiquing the film, you didn't enjoy the day-to-day moments of how funny this movie is?
In terms of being like emergency services, right? There's a line in it where Nicolas Cage, they're driving down the street, and he looks at the buildings and he says that every building holds a ghost. It gets to the point where every street you go to, there's been a stabbing or a murder or something he's had to deal with. And he's so jaded, and I feel like he's jaded with his job. He's got to the point where he no longer knows whether he's doing any good. He turns up late to work, and his boss says, all right, let's get on your shift. And he says,
best scene in the movie.
You promised you'd fire me if I was late once more. You promised. Yeah. And the guy says, okay, Frank, just carry on. No, you promised.
I'll fire you tomorrow.
Yeah,
I promise.
Tomorrow. And the idea of someone who has to work, and like you say, going into places where other people don't have to go, and the screaming and the police cordon tapes, and the working at night time, and there's blood everywhere and guts and brains, and you've constantly got it on you, and you've got blood on you, and you're jaded, and you start to wonder whether you should still be alive yourself. This film has the potential to it's funny, right? But it's also quite depressing.
It is, but let me interject. A film of just Frank driving around, a la Taxi Driver, just staring off into the distance, would be maybe more dour than Synecdoche, New York. But what they do is they take Frank, who feels all the things you said, and they put him with Ving Rhames, an evangelical man who also loves to go and look at the prostitutes and complains that the prostitutes don't wear the hoop skirts anymore and stuff.
Yeah.
Or the go-go boots.
Yeah.
Who also has the quote to him, and he says this with a straight face. He goes, Frank, you ever notice people who see shit are always crazy? Scientific fact. And so what's great about this movie is Frank, I would say he's not an atheist. He obviously believes that he's helping spirits, so he has some kind of religious belief. But he seems more of a Nietzsche-esque existential dread kind of guy, and you pair him up with an evangelical guy, and normally in your day-to-day life, he probably wouldn't hang out with this guy. But what's awesome is at your job, it's like, no, this guy's your best friend now for the next 12 hours.
Yeah.
And so playing off, and the different people, John Goodman, who's just, I want to quit, and I can't, don't take the call, and he's just freaking out, and and Frank wants to take calls, and he doesn't, versus the evangelical Marcus, versus Tom Sizemore, who's just a complete lunatic. By the way, they said the homeless guy that always needs a drink of water is played by Mark Antony, who oddly enough at that time would go from performing in this film and go home and make out with J-Lo. But apparently him and Tom Sizemore did not get along on set and were fighting throughout the entire set. So in real life, I wonder, maybe he hit him a little bit too hard with the baseball bat. I also heard that the writer for the script, who is
Paul Schrader.
Yeah, Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, he wanted Ed Norton to play the lead character, and they felt they couldn't get the budget they wanted without Nicolas Cage. So imagine this movie with Ed Norton in the lead. I love Nicolas Cage in this movie, but that's an interesting Elseworld thing.
Ed Norton would work.
Yeah.
Maybe better. Ed Norton was too busy filming Fight Club, probably.
Fight Club was 99
this
too,
is
yeah.
99, yeah?
Yeah.
Same year.
So this is when Fight Club came out, yeah.
I consider myself quite a big Scorsese fan, but I'd never actually heard of this film. I didn't really know what to expect. Again, you said it was a comedy. And it comes up.
I did not say it was.
You did.
You just
you said
make
I
this
laughed
up.
my ass off. You said bringing out the dead.
Yes.
Bring out your dad. Bring out your dad. I'm immediately thinking Monty Python. I'm thinking Scorsese's going to give me Monty Python here.
I could say, watch the U.S. presidential debates. You'll laugh your ass off. That doesn't mean it's a comedy.
I mean, so I put it on, and immediately Bringing Out the Dead comes on the font, and it's got that. It's in that 90s, like every serial killer. Seven and Copycat and all these different serial killer flicks from the 90s. They all got that font. It's kind of almost like a newspaper font. And I thought, oh, okay, here we go. This is Scorsese being like current in the 90s. So I was kind of on the back foot because I was thinking, oh my God, is this going to be like an aging director being a bit cliche, trying to be hip with the kids? But then that Van Morrison track starts, which actually runs through the whole film. And I thought, oh, hang on a minute. And then we do get into that kind of Taxi Driver, introducing New York City. Like you said, as a character, you're winning me over a bit here. Introducing New York City as a character. And it only took Nicolas Cage to go to that job and to look at the building and say, I think him or John Goodman, to say, why is it always the top floor? And that's true in life, right? Life is always on the damn top floor. And there's never a lift elevator. There's never a lift.
Sorry, I was just writing the letter in my head to Martin Scorsese. I'm going to send him where I'm going to tell him that you dislike the font.
I hated the font. and that was a big dip, right? Isn't it weird? The very first thing that the film put in front of me was that font, that typeface, and I immediately took a dislike to it. Isn't that weird? Right? Let me just come at you again, right, with a few things that I liked. Right,
okay.
Because I am here. I am genuinely, and I can feel it happening. I'm genuinely here to be won over. Right now, you mentioned Noel, right?
Yes.
And I didn't know who he was, but I googled him, Mark Anthony. I googled him, right?
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah.
He sold 12 million albums.
Yeah.
Married to J-Lo.
He was. Yeah.
I thought he was great. I thought he was great in this.
He was divorcing. Mark Anthony was divorcing J-Lo before it was cool.
I noticed Nicolas Cage has been married like 5 times. Like serial meet a woman, marry her, meet a woman, marry her. I think at the time of this film, he'd met a certain actress called Patricia Arquette and married her. Am I right about that?
He married her before, and they were married throughout the filming of this.
So they've cast Nicolas Cage and his wife in this film. Does that explain what Patricia Arquette is doing in this film?
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that because I really like Patricia Arquette, and here, let me give you not in this film. So let me finish.
You need to win me over on this one.
Yeah. I like her in just about everything she's in. She's in Lost Highway. She's in True Romance. She's in is it not Severance? It's a new Apple series, but anyway, I love her in most things she's in. She does not fit in this movie, and her acting just isn't. Now, what I'll give to her is she is a beautiful woman who also I can believe lives in that world. A lot of times you'll see a movie like this, and Nicolas Cage is with like Jessica Alba, and you're like, I don't really see this. She seems like she could be in this world, but her acting in this, it sort of reminded me of Cameron Diaz in Gangs of New York, where the casting, it just doesn't quite fit. So I will agree with you there that that's one of my criticisms of the film, even though I genuinely like her in everything else I've seen her in. I don't think she fits in this movie.
While we're talking about Patricia Arquette, I quite like that you agreed with me there, because at least it shows I'm not that far off the map with this. But there was a moment in this film where she says they're sitting in a room, and she says to Nicolas Cage, I know my father would hate being tied down. He wouldn't even go to the dentist. And Scorsese does this really weird thing where he He's focusing on her face. Then he focuses, and then it. What do you call it when it transitions to with a fade? It transitions with a fade to a side view, and then back to her face, and then to a side view again. Do you know the bit I mean? I mean, obviously, I'm putting it on the screen right now.
Yes.
I had to watch it again and again. It's at 49 minutes and 6 seconds, right?
Well, there's
For the edit. 49 minutes and 6 seconds. Edit it in now. And I watched it multiple times. He means something there. He's trying to make me feel something. And I got no clue.
Well, a lot
Tell
of
me.
times, a lot of visual trickery that I took that he did throughout the film with the lights, with the freeze frames, and then sort of skipping frames and cutting all these weird cuts. Sort of, if you remember Better Call Saul, there were a few episodes where Kim wasn't getting a lot of sleep, and she would do this thing where she'd be driving, and then it'd cut, and she'd be like in a completely different space, and it would freak her out until she eventually, spoilers, gets in an accident. I think he was doing the same thing to great effect, where I think a lot of these cuts and a lot of the sort of jerkiness of how he's shooting these in the shaky cam and stuff is to sort of show this is a guy that's running on no sleep. He's a little drunk. He's taking drugs a little bit in the back of the ambulance. And I think it worked to great effect for me to sort of show how he's sort of gliding through these nights in sort of sections.
Those bits you've just mentioned, everything you've just listed there, all the sped up camera work, the staccato camera work, the saturation of the colours, all of that, I got it. There was a moment where the camera was side view, side on as well. I get all that. I get it all. I'm just specifically this scene. He was. It's a weird fade.
And I don't remember it.
You don't remember it?
I don't remember that specific
I've probably
scene.
put it on the screen now 4 times.
I'm on the show going, all right, I didn't notice
so
it.
Bill, in the comments section of this video, when
explain.
you've watched this, give me what you think, because it stood out. It was so weird, and it stood out so much to me. It took me out of the film.
One thing, what's interesting, the one thing that took me out of the film, you mentioned the music, which normally, and I wrote a note when you said when that first song started how good Scorsese is at this, and yet
I know which song you're
there's a
going to
section.
say.
Yeah, they're riding in the ambulance and they play this 10,000 Maniacs song.
Oh no,
And-
okay. I'll let you
okay.
carry on. It was for me. It was REM. I think it was like "What's a Frequency Kenneth?"
Oh
or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
And I was
that
like-
was a bit. Yeah,
And I was like, but tell me, right? I'll stop talking now.
Yeah,
Tell me
What's
about
the
your bit.
Frequency, Kenneth? Was a bit like an intern was like, hey, it kind of goes with the fact that they're on the radio.
It went with that font.
But the one that I didn't like that either. But what really got me was 10,000. It's that song, "These Are the Days," and it's supposed to be a romantic moment with him and Patricia Arquette in the back of the ambulance, and it's weird. It doesn't fit. It's mixed weird. They sort of did this in The Departed, where they played "Comfortably Numb," the live version in The Departed, and it works a little bit better. This seemed like it was the live version of 10,000 Maniacs, and it very much felt dated. And a guy who puts Rolling Stone songs in all his movies that don't feel dated, 10,000 Maniacs felt dated. It felt out of place. I felt like I was watching a worse director and a worse movie for a second when they played that. It just really was jarring for me.
Yes. That. Okay, so you're touching upon some of my criticisms there, which is, the 90s font, the choice of some of the music, some very, very 90s looking stuff, but fair enough, it was set in the 90s.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned when they were cutting the guy who had fallen off the balcony, and there was some very 1990s matte painting stuff and effects happening with that, where you could see them on the soundstage,
I liked
where
it.
they're matte painting behind them. Yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm a bit contrary here, I admit. I liked it, but to me, this film was fixed as a 90s. Oh, look at the font, look at the music, look at the especially REM. Whereas to me, Taxi Driver's timeless. This isn't timeless. This is, oh my god, this is a 90s Scorsese film.
Well, and I come at it from the perspective that I don't mind that it's very 1990s, because that's when it was filmed. That's what it's about. And I feel like it captures things. For instance, I mentioned I used to work for an armored car company. This is before they had, they would really monitor with GPS. So we could get our route done really fast and then sit and eat for an hour and no one knew the difference if we got our job done. And in this movie, there's a part where they're sitting, they shut the ambulance off, they're drinking, and he's like, don't answer the radio. Nowadays, if that happened, they'd go, you're sitting on 5th and whatever. What are you doing? And now they don't. And so it was a glimpse in time when they could sort of get away with that sort of thing. Yeah. And so I didn't mind that. And Jerry Seinfeld once, he was talking about why people like sitcoms and what they like. And he goes, you got to have a good place in your sitcom. It has to be a place people want to go to. Like, what's the deal? It's got to be a place people want to go to. And interesting enough, as horrid as Hell's Kitchen is in this movie, I love being there. Now, I love being there in the comfort of my home watching this film. I wouldn't love being there if I smelled what it actually smelled like inside that emergency room. But what he does so well is I love the craziness of everybody. I love the city. I love the way everything looks. I love how zany and sort of real everything is. The head nurse lecturing every single patient that goes in, like, oh, so we're gonna treat you. You're just gonna go put poison back in your arm. And I love that there's this guy, Mr. O, that stinks to high heaven.
I was about to say
Mr. O. They have to pick him up every time, and he's the only one she's nice to in the entire film. Like, it always has these little touches that you wouldn't expect. Like, she's, oh, sweetie, and very nice when she hates everyone else in the film. The guy, the homeless guy, played by Mark Antony, who is always chained down in the beginning of the film. He's crying for water, and he's gonna like destroy his kidneys. And the other patient's so sick of hearing him scream out that he just gets up and lets him loose. Yeah,
I thought so. I watched it twice, right? And I think Noel was probably my favourite character. This weird guy who's got this like rabid thirst for water. But there's a moment, I kind of missed it first time around. There's a moment where Patricia Arquette explains that Noel was once a right guy, but he got shot in the head by the drug dealer or the tiger, the fat sidekick to the drug dealer.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, okay, it's another victim in this film. Another, we're kind of laughing at him, but his life is screwed.
We're doing the yin and yang of this film and things I loved and the things I didn't like. One of the things I thought it suffered a little bit from was by having him show up as a recurring character every night they go out, and having the same drug dealer that we meet later be the one that shot him, and that's the same drug dealer that Patricia Arquette goes to. It's one of those things they do a lot in the new Star Wars, where you're supposed to be in this big universe, but it's only got 5 people in it, and I felt like they went to the well a little bit too much.
It made New York City
tiny.
It was tiny. No matter where you drove, the same people there. You're absolutely right.
Well,
Star Wars,
and
the whole universe, but you always meet C-3PO.
Yeah, and you know, you're seeing these same characters, and then even the bit. So they do a bit where, why do I keep forgetting his name? The homeless guy.
No,
it's Noel. Noel. They convince him that if he comes back to the hospital, they'll kill him. So he's trying to kill himself, and he's got the bottle to his neck. And Nicolas Cage talks him into, like, I promise I'll kill you.
Yeah.
And then they do the same bit twice, though. There's the other guy that wants to kill himself, and then Nicolas Cage yells at him that he's going to actually do it. Remember, they put the thing on his head. They put the sensor on his head.
Tom goes down the route, doesn't he? Tom goes down the route. He's going to play the game of convincing the guy that he can get him through the situation by, I've got this thing on your head, and if it goes green, you got to call 911. And the guy's buying it. He's buying it. And then Nick Cage, he steps in and ruins it all, and like he cures it his own way by saying, giving him the knife. You don't do it this way, mate. You do it this way. Go on. I got other people out there who want to live, and you want to die. And the guy that runs off. That was trying to say something there, because you had the manic guy who was actually gonna be quite. That was going to be quite an empathetic way to deal with that situation, and Nick Cage just rode roughshod.
Well, and he hates it, and I think that's playing to the theme that later he learns the way he wants to help isn't necessarily what these people need. So, like, he didn't want to help this guy this way. He wanted to, like, exorcise his demons, and later on in the film he learns that sometimes it's about giving these guys and these people what they need. The more important question I wanted to ask you was, Martin Scorsese plays the dispatcher in a lot of this film. And then when Ving Rhames comes in, who a lot of you may recognize as the guy with the Band-Aid in the back of his head in Pulp Fiction, there's a new dispatcher, and it's played by Queen Latifah, and he went on a date that went badly, and he's constantly flirting with her. What I wanted to ask you was, did Martin Scorsese, in your words, miss a trick by not allowing him to play the dispatcher and have him and Marcus flirt with each other?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I mean, come on now.
He actually went quite safe with that, didn't he? Very safe.
She just shows. He just had a black lady show up to flirt with Ving Rhames.
He played it safe.
She's like, "Oh, excuse me, it's my turn."
I'll tell you what. In terms of, like you say, in terms of being negative about it, in terms of reducing the size of the city, and reducing the character base and everything, and having it that on the night that Ving Rhames is on duty, Queen Latifah's on duty.
Shows up.
Yeah, it's all contracted. And so, do you think Paul Schrader knows his stuff? And do you think it's all on purpose? Yeah, it's trying to.
It's a character study.
A character
and
study.
It's hard to tell. It's hard to do a character study without characters. So
yes.
As a writer, you want to have characters for these guys to bounce off of, and it's harder. Thematically, I guess, to keep introducing random people, although I love the random aspect of it. It's like you're with John Goodman and you're going, what's going to happen? And then you're with Ving Rhames, what's going to happen? And I think Tom Sizemore is the least likable. So I think John Goodman and Ving Rhames are both insane, but you like them. And I think Tom Sizemore is just a dick. And so you want to see what happens, but he's not someone, I think it would be really fun to ride around with Ving Rhames or John Goodman. I don't think it would be very fun. And I think we've all known those people that are like, when you're a teenager, they're in your friend group and you're like, oh, they're just looking for something awful. And I think he played it very, very well. But he's just,
Is Tom the one who ended up smashing up his ambulance? Shouting, die, die, die.
Yes. Yeah.
Because he was.
That was him.
That was funny. Right, that was funny. I'm sure that happened after he was praising the ambulance and saying how it was his.
He was.
Safe.
Yes, he praised the ambulance. Yeah.
Die! I was going to say John Goodman, right? So we open up with John Goodman, right, as his buddy. And I really identified with that because John Goodman gets through his day in this sheer hellhole of being constantly covered in blood by just thinking about what food he wants to eat. And it was quite funny when he when people do that thing, and I do it sometimes to people, where it's quite a normal conversation. You go, no, wait, and then the person goes like, what? Jesus Christ, Mercurial number 6, what's wrong?
I ate that
yesterday.
Like, is that what you?
Yeah, I can't have it 2 days in a row.
And I thought, yeah, that was great.
One of my favorite, it's an unsung moment, one of my favorite moments in the whole film is they're going up and there's a bunch of bums and I think they're either getting Mr. O or somebody OD'd and it's all these homeless guys and Nicolas Cage just asks one of them if they have a coffee. So it's like the worst. It must smell like just the worst shit you've ever smelled in your life. And he's just like, do any of you have a coffee? Like he would just drink it from taking it from him.
So we're talking about what gets each person through their days, right? So John Goodman, it's food. And I kind of thought with Nicolas Cage, he's got like a kind of coffee and whiskey diet, right? I think this is a guy who just stinks of coffee and whiskey. So it's what Ving Rhames. It's like the Lord and religion and stuff, right? I wanted to bring up one of my favourite scenes there as well, where he goes. They're in a room full of people, and someone's died basically on an overdose.
I be banging.
And so you've taken my thing, right? So he goes, what's his name? And they go, I be banging, right? He goes, what's his name really? And they're like, I don't know, John Smith.
Frederick something, right? Yeah.
And as soon as they tell him what his real name is, he immediately calls him I be banging. So even Ving Rhames is like, that name's, I'm not calling him by his real name. That's terrible. That's a terrible name. I be banging.
What's his name?
I be banging.
What you mean I be banging?
I be banging.
What the hell kind of name is I be banging?
I don't know his real name.
Frederick Smith.
Okay, Freddie.
It's Frederick.
Okay, I be banging.
And then when he brings I be banging around, he shouts, Oh, it's something like, Lord, I be banging. No, what does he say?
Like
He does. Lord, I be banging. I be banging. And I thought, oh yeah, I could see. I thought at that point, there's definitely a chance there could be one. There's definitely a chance there could be one around here.
Well, also, like I told you the quote, you ever noticed that whenever someone talks to themselves, they're always crazy? He also has this great moment where Nicolas Cage tells him the story about a guy, and I think it's the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland, and this woman jumps off and the wind blows her back. And I love that Ving Rhames, up to this point, has not heard that story. He's never heard that before. Nicolas Cage says, yeah, there's an Irish lady in Cliffs of Moher. She jumps, the wind blows her back, and he is furious at Nick Cage. And he goes, the wind did not blow her back. It was clearly Jesus. And he didn't even know the story happened before he said it. And then the juxtaposition also of him being so religious and then being like, let's go look at some hookers. Like, let's go drink and look at some hookers.
Yes. Gris, right? Now you've already said the line, but I had to say it myself as well, right? Because he says, the thing is, he says, don't make me take off my sunglasses, right? And I went, oh yeah, brilliant, right? I thought I'm remembering that one, right? But he says it again later in the film. He says that line twice.
Well, I was thinking of the line that Ving Rhames, when Nicolas Cage, he hears the voices, and he goes, what are they saying, man? And Nicolas Cage goes, they're saying I should kill Marcus. And he's like, that shit ain't funny. He was all...
Oh, I missed that. See, Bill, right? So I missed that. That would make me laugh, but I missed that line.
To go back to my Seinfeld point, without Tom Sizemore, you want to be hanging out with these people. I love hanging out with these people watching this film. I just am laughing the entire time. And it just feels more, and it's so refreshing to have such a weird view of what kind of probably goes on across the country to some extent with these people who are saving our lives, who are dealing with things we don't want to look at. It's the place we don't want to go. It's the smell we don't want to smell. It's the things that we're not adept to handle, and they're going into that room.
The maggots.
And I don't think we give them enough credit for what they do. And I think you probably have to be a little crazy to do it. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean it in that they're facing something we don't face. And I loved how they captured it, and I got a real kick out of spending time with them, watching this movie.
Can I give you my biggest problem with this film, I think? I don't think you're going to like...
Go for it.
I don't think you're going to like what I'm going to say, because I can imagine you coming back and giving me some sort of great positive about it. Right,
okay.
So the whole film seems to revolve around the fact that he meets this girl, Rose, on the street, 18, homeless. It's about 6 months previous to this
I might
film,
agree with you
right?
here. Okay, go for it.
And he fails to save her life, right? And he's, for some reason, not entirely explained, not really, not adequately for my liking. He's kind of haunted by this one person that he fails to save, even though there's countless others. But he sort of sees her faces. Everyone's face in the film is Rose, right? Right. By the end of the film, there's a scene where everyone's face is Rose.
Yeah.
Everyone. It's a bit like John Malkovich, right? Everyone's face is Rose. Now, I didn't like it. I don't like Rose's face. The gormless look she gives to the camera. She gives this gormless face. So I have to put up with this every few seconds, right? He's looking at somebody, some normal, nice-looking person, and they turn into this face.
Yeah.
Right? What? Try and sell that to me. I get what. It's so heavy-handed. It's so heavy-handed.
First of all, I love that my best friend is a Brit because he refers to people as having a gormless face. But I agree with you. And here's the thing. I think as a literary device, I completely get
it's heavy-handed.
It's heavy-handed, and I think if you're reading it in a book, it sounds like something you'd read. I saw that her face everywhere I looked. And it's a nice poetic thing, but in practice, I don't know if it was the makeup, because I don't think it's the actress as much as the way they're superimposing her head. It looks just off.
Yeah.
And not in a good way that they're going for off.
It's not ghostly.
It's not
crap.
ghostly. Yeah, it's more like animatronic-y. And I felt like we see it so much that, yes, I'm going, I get it. It's Rose. We get it.
Yeah, and I was saying that by the end. I was literally looking at the screen going, I get it. I get what you're doing. Please stop.
I think And I think for Scorsese, I think less would have been more. I think if they would have done that less, and if it would have been one of those things where you look and it's her and you look and it's not her, and it's very quick blink if you miss it, I think less is more with that. I think they could have tastefully done it in a way, and then maybe at the end, then paid it off with everyone having her face after you. I think Fight Club, which came out the same year, did that thing where they'd put like Tyler Durden and shots of penises for
Just
every
a
like
frame.
1 out of 24 frames. Yeah, and it's just flopping up, and you're going, wait, did I see that?
Yes.
And I think if he would have done something a little more akin to that, then you could have had the payoff, and it would have worked better. But I agree with you that as it stands, I was sick of Rose. And though they did explain it, what happened was she was dying. He kept trying to put the tube down her throat, and it kept going into her stomach instead of her airway. Yeah. So you could see why he would take personal responsibility, because she's so young. And he could have.
He
saved
believes
her.
he killed.
In
So
his mind.
So let's try and pen it down. So the difference on this one was not that. It was not that he could have saved her. It was more that he actually killed her, because. Because it was John Goodman, wasn't it, saying, you've got the stomach again.
Yeah.
You've got the stomach, and he kind of. So in his head, he's thinking, shit, I killed her.
Yeah. Well, that brings up another interesting point. So we talked about the theme of the film and how, it feels like it's trying to say he did the right thing by releasing this guy from his suffering at the end. And yet, he releases the guy from his suffering. Now, you could make a good argument that this guy's having heart attacks and being brought back, 7 times every 2 hours. But he does it because the guy looks him in the eye and has an internal monologue that says, "Frank, please kill thee." Now, I hate to be to point this out, but Frank can't actually hear his thoughts.
He murdered him.
He did manslaughter. I think it's manslaughter. And there's a chance that guy in his head is going, "No, please, it's a miracle I've survived this long. Maybe I'm going to pull through." And then Frank murders him and then goes and sleeps with his daughter.
Yes, right. I was kind of right, so when it fades to white at the end and it's supposed to be like a good, like warm kind of thing, I think what you've just said though, I hadn't quite got it in my mind, nailed that well. But you're absolutely right. Through his own psychosis, through his own mental thing, he believes he's hearing voices from the man who's actually recovering from whatever he had wrong with him. And he chooses, because he believes he hears the guy's voice, to kill him and then go and present himself to the guy's daughter and sleep with her. You're absolutely right. That's a real twisted ending.
And it makes me think, because I always wonder, whenever I watch horror films, we do a lot of Giallo films, or we're going to do the bird with the crystal plumage after this review. And a lot of times with scary movies, I must have been a deer in a past life, because when I watch them, I always imagine I'm the one getting killed. And so I'm always like, whoa, and I always feel disturbed after watching it. And it dawned on me one time that there's probably people watching like slasher films and imagining they're the killer and that power fantasy of going around. Now, I'm sure people are watching this going, yeah, of course. It never dawned on me. And so it's interesting that Bringing Out the Dead is sort of doing that. It's showing a guy murdering a guy and then going home to sleep with his daughter and being bathed in white light, because it's the perspective, and from his perspective, he did the right thing. Now, I do think, if we're fair, I think most people would agree that man was suffering. But
he was
we don't know what
because
he wanted.
He got moved from the emergency part,
room.
and he got moved to a ward. So the doctors believed he was recovering. Nicolas Cage walked in, heard voices, and killed him. Yeah, I got 3 more points. I liked that Nicolas Cage got. I think it was Nicolas Cage got described as a grief mop. I like that.
That was good. Yes.
I liked. There was a scene. I'm not a fan of Red Wine by UB40. But seeing a fish on the floor flopping around.
Yeah.
And it was like a weird rap version, but of Red Wine. Quite like that, right?
Yeah.
And one of my favourite scenes, and my advice from watching this scene is, if someone tells you, hand on heart, that they're a virgin, don't necessarily believe them, right? Don't necessarily believe them.
I think that's fair. What about Nicolas Cage driving?
What? Okay, right. Seriously, what about Nicolas Cage in general in this film? I thought Nicolas Cage in a Martin Scorsese film that Bill has already told me is one of his favourite films.
I love this movie.
So I thought Nicolas Cage in this film, he's going to be different, right? He's going to do something that's going to make me go, "Oh wow, that was a real."
No, he's just Nicolas
tour de
Cage.
force performance by Nicolas Cage. But no, Nicolas Cage played Nicolas Cage again.
Yes.
Wild Eyes! Woohoo!
Yes. Now,
Yeah.
but I would say
Yeah.
Ed Norton as Frank is a very interesting thought experiment, and I would like to see that.
Yeah.
But I think it's not a movie where Nick Cage has to change to make the movie good. I think it's a movie that Nick Cage is perfect to just put in this movie. He just fits with the zany characters. His zaniness, you believe him. You believe that he's nuts. And I think it works. I just think it works. I laugh. There are times where I've seen him in movies where I roll my eyes and I go, ugh. Not this one. This is one of my favorite, I really like him in this. I think the flaws of this movie keep it from Scorsese's sort of top tier of films. But I just love spending time in this world. I love these characters. I love hanging around them. And sometimes that's enough.
I would say on my first viewing of this film, I would have given it a thumbs down. I think second viewing, starting to skew that way. I think you've won me over to give it that.
All right.
And I'm assuming you're giving it that.
So let me ask, as they're going off and they're saying all this crazy shit and all this thing is happening, are you laughing or are you just stone-faced going, "This, I don't understand the thematic reasoning for this"?
I thought overall there were I thought overall it was quite funny. I thought it was heavy-handed. I think it was trying to spell some stuff out to me that it really didn't need to. And then on the other hand, I thought some of it was a bit too sleight of hand, where I was actually going, like the bit that I probably showed 4 times earlier, where I was going, sorry, what? I'll be honest with you, I found it a bit of a slog, but I think you've won me around. You've won me to there. That's
I
good.
think,
No, not everyone can affect me like that. You have an effect on me, Bill. Not sexually. Well, mate, I don't know. But you've made me go. You've made me go
The
to there.
mercurial number. Before we end on that, we have other movies to look at. I believe the next film that we're going to review is going to be is it The Bird with the Crystal?
Do you want to do that one? Do you want to do that one?
Yeah, well, we promised the good folks at Reddit over at our Jalo had recommended a bunch of Jalo films for us to review, and we picked that one. So I think that would be a good one for our next one.
The Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
Dario Argento from the 70s Jalo film.
We also have some suggestions. We're looking at if there is a film you would really like us to review, please let us know. Also, once again, if you're watching this, please like and subscribe to our channel. We just got 600 viewers. We're a newer channel. We enjoy it. We appreciate it. We probably have, 20 movie reviews up now, something like that. So we're getting there. And if you have any suggestions, things you like, things you don't like, we'd love to hear about it. And we just want to say thank you. So I think that's all I have to say. I obviously love Bringing Out the Dead. I would highly recommend watching it. I
thought it was, I wouldn't bother. But until next time. Woohoo! Woohoo! Everyone should be a little bit more Nicolas Cage, because it just gets you through. Marry those women. Right.
Yeah. When in doubt, marry him.
When in doubt, marry them. Okay. And on that, woo, woo. Nicolas Cage, he's a weird one. He's a weird one, isn't he?
You sound like my mom. That was a very thing my mom would say. She would just call me up, and I'd be like, "Mom, what's going on?" Nicolas Cage is a weird one, isn't he? Sorry, go ahead.
Over and welcome to 6 of One and Bill of the Other, where this episode, Bill and I are reviewing Killers of the Flower Moon.